everybody. Sabbath and Morrow here. I know we have some new faces in She Blooms Academy, and so I want to just say welcome. And for those of you who have been in, I hope that this teaching video, I'm going to try to start doing these once a week for these journals, and so to make it more accessible to everybody. But this is the part where we go a little bit deeper with the journals, the monthly journals. So if you're looking for the monthly journal for this month, it is called Setting Goals with God, Purpose-Driven Planning. It's volume 8, and you can find the paperback copy on Amazon. And so these are the ones that we use. There's 30 monthly journaling prompts in the back, and we use these for the daily devotions in the She Blooms Sisters group. And what we call She Blooms Academy, we actually break down, and then small groups meet and they discuss the questions, the journaling questions that are in here weekly. And so, what I hope to do is start giving you a teaching that you can listen to, hopefully very short and sweet, but that helps you and guides you through these questions and guides you through some thoughts on the monthly journals every week. So this is week 1. You always have a little bit of pre-work to do in most of the journals, and so that is found in the introduction. And really, let me just take you through the journal real quick, okay? What you're gonna find. So you kind of listen to the teaching, attend a small group if you're doing a small group session live, and then you can do your pre-work in your week 1, and then you do week 2, and that follows the pattern every week through week 4. And so on page 1 of your journal, it tells you how to use this workbook. We always begin by becoming aware of the topic, really what's going on in our heart and mind about the topic. And then we kind of use that pre-work and that introductory lesson to spend time with God and the daily journaling prompts and just see where we are in our life and what season we are in what's happening in our thoughts and our processes with this topic that God has given us to kind of dive into. And then week 2, it's always a little bit difficult for people because we kind of get into those areas that you're like, oh, I don't want to go there. But it's really what's holding you back. Thinking about why you're not taking action in this area, and just kind of diving in a little bit to, maybe what's going on in your heart, what's happened in the past that's keeping you from doing that. And then we don't stay there, okay, very long, because week 3. I really help you to focus on, okay, what's my plan of action around this? How can I understand that this has been holding me back? I don't want it to hold me back anymore, and I want to take action and I want to move forward, okay? And so it's really about living it out, intentional planning. And then week 4 is celebrating those wins and breakthroughs. And so it's looking back on the month and saying, you know what, I started this with the Lord. This is what happened in my life because I'm focused and I'm intentional with my spiritual growth and my personal growth. And we just want to celebrate. And so that is what we love to do every month. It follows the same format with a different topic. And so this month's topic is really about setting goals with God, and it's about purpose-driven planning. And so this is so different than doing this the world's way. I really feel like no, I'm going to say right off the bat, no, the word goal is not in the Bible. But there's a lot of verses and there's just a lot of things that teach us how to live life in the Bible. And so we want to take that biblical application and we want to take it into all areas of our life. I do believe that the Bible teaches us to diligently plan, and so to set those goals with diligent planning and wisdom and godly ambition, submitting to God's will rather than selfish ambition. That's something that I've had to work on in my life, is worldly ambition versus godly ambition. And I think for me, this really started, I think God was like, I was really working hard for the world, right? And working hard on my career at one point in my life. And God was like, just think if you took all of that worldly ambition and you put it into what I'm calling you to do. And so if you think about that, and then I thought, all of this, I've had a lot of sales training in my life. And so I thought, what if I took all this sales training and I put it into trying to further the gospel and getting people saved and teaching people how to live the Bible and if you think about that, like if you really think about all the things that God has allowed you to be a part of in your life, whether it was your path or God's path for you at the time, all the training that you've had, all the education that you had, everything, all the life experience that you've had. What if you take all of that and you start setting godly goals with it? All the knowledge, everything that you've learned. Don't you think we could advance the kingdom so much more, like by doing that? I mean, it's just crazy to think that we could, put all of that and turn things around and further the gospel and further the kingdom of God by just switching our thoughts a little bit and how we live life. And so this is what this month is about for me. It's about helping, my Christian sisters to understand that, God has goals for you in life, and it's okay to set those goals and to understand that, He wants us to plan with intention and prioritize, His will over our selfish ambition. And so Proverbs 21:5 is, one verse that comes to mind, while you're studying this. But, it just basically says that, the plans of the diligent lead to profit. And so if we're diligent and we're planning with the Lord, the things in our life are going to be profitable, even though they may not look like it to us, even though there may be hardship in that, even though there may be failing and falling down in that. It's still profitable, right? It works in us character and works in us patience and all those good things that God is trying to build in us and the women that we're becoming in according to who He wants us to become. And I think the most important thing is that while we're working on these goals with the Lord, is to understand and realize that we are to do the work and we are to leave that outcome to Him. The outcome rests with God. And so, whatever that outcome is, and whatever that looks like, and how the end of that goal is reached, we are to leave that up to God. I think another important thing that, as you go into this month to realize is that setting goals with God versus setting goals with the world, you may not feel like you have all the resources, all the tools, all the wisdom to get the things done that God is calling you to do. That's the power of the Holy Spirit. That is the power of God working in you, and the power of your faith is just taking that next step with the Lord and letting Him fill in the gaps between where He's taking you and where you are right now. That's really goal setting with God. And so when we look at the Bible, like, I think the greatest goal setter was Noah. Like, I mean, you look at Noah and you're like, well, how did he get the ark built? He had to plan with the Lord. The Lord gave him all the supplies. The Lord gave him all the wisdom. But the goal was to get that ark finished. And so you may look and you may like, nobody in the Bible set goals. Well, yeah, they did, because you look right there in the beginning, right? There was a goal to get the ark done and to be obedient to what God was calling Noah to do. And I'm sure Noah had no idea how to get it done, and there was great opposition in what he was doing. You look at examples like Nehemiah and building the wall, rebuilding the wall. And then you look at, even the disciples and even Jesus, there was intentional things that were happening to ensure that the will of God was being done. And even the feeding of the 5,000, Jesus was intentional in how He did that. He looked up to God. He gave, thanks for what He had in His hands, and then they began to feed the 5,000, and they did it in an orderly fashion too. And so there's something to be said about really thinking about that. And of course, y'all know I can't leave Joseph out of this. I love Joseph. And so you think about the story of Joseph and, how that started with a dream and from the Lord. And then there was a plan. He planned intentionally for those 7 years of preparation for that famine. And so I don't know what, I don't, where is this little button? Hold on, let me turn that off. That's bothered me. I don't know what God is going to ask you to do this month, and I don't know where you are. And so I hope this week one kind of shows you, and I hope just from what I've shared with you, um, that you begin to think about goals differently in your life, and you begin to think that, you know what, there are things that God wants me to do, and there's work for Him to do. I think about Paul, right? Think about even Paul in the Bible that, the work that he did in the early church. And it was his godly ambition to make sure that the gospel was preached. That's a goal, y'all. That's a goal. And so, we have to sit up and pay attention to this, I think, and stop saying, well, I don't know. I don't have any goals. I don't have any ambition. Yes, you do. If you're a Christian, if you're a believer, God is asking you to do things in your life, and He's asking you to do them with intention and with planning, purpose-driven planning. And so I hope that this month opens your eyes. I hope that it sets a fire in you. I hope that you get inspired to really lean in and do this with the Lord. And so I'm going to go through some of the things in the journal for the introduction and the pre-work, and then week one with you, and then in video too we'll have a little teaching on overcoming, and we'll just do that weekly. So I want to say first, the first step in this is to recognize that you need to plan diligently. Proverbs 6 and 6 through 11 talks about how the ant, the little tiny ant that God created, even the little tiny ant is purposely planning, and storing up and preparing for the winter. And it reminds us that we can't be lazy in this. And so I see so many women who are kind of just drifting through their seasons of life. They're really just surviving and not thriving. And I feel like this month is where you get to finally say, I don't want to just survive. I want to thrive. I want to I want to plan with intention my days that I have here on this earth, because the truth is we all have such a short life. No matter how long we live, it's a short life. And so we only have so much time that God has given us to really do what He's called us to do and to make a difference for Him. And so we can't be lazy. We've got to be thoughtfully, diligently planning. And the Bible teaches us that when we do this, this leads to abundance in our life. And then I think the second step is really submitting fully. Proverbs 16:3, which is one of our verses that I picked out for this month. It says to commit your works to the Lord, and then your thoughts will be established. So once you make that step of commitment, once you say, Lord, it's your will for my life, I surrender everything, and I surrender it all to you, then it's really just, saying, I leave the outcome up to you. I admit I don't know what I'm doing. I'm asking you, Lord, for wisdom, and I'm committing my whole life, everything that I do, I'm committing it to you. Um, and then I think you've got to go through the process of counting the cost, right? Like there's some things that you're going to have to say no to. God really woke me up on this a couple of years ago, and He was like, just because you can do everything doesn't mean you should do everything. Probably write that down in your journal. Just because you can do everything doesn't mean you should be doing everything. There are some things that you've got to count the cost on when you set goals with God. You've got to understand that there is something that God has for you that is His best for you. And there are really good things in your life that you could be doing, But that's not God's best for you. It's not what He's called you to be working on in this season of life. It's not the goal that He's called you to be working on. And so you have to understand the word no is a complete sentence, right? You don't have to explain yourself when you're working with the Lord and you say no to things. No, I cannot do that right now. No, I cannot commit to that right now. It's beautiful and it's beautiful for you and your season. And I will support you and I will encourage you. I remember when I first transitioned out of, I was working in direct sales and I was very successful. And when I first transitioned out of that, so many people, because they knew I was a leader and a leader in sales, wanted me to be involved in their organizations, right? And they were good. They're good companies. There's good things about them. Some not so much. Some really good. But I had to turn down a lot of things. I couldn't listen to a lot of things. I couldn't be involved in a lot of things. I've had instances where I've been, working on something God had me working on, and somebody would, ask me to come and do this thing over here that they were involved in, and it was great. It was wonderful. But at that time in that season, I would have had to say no to what God was having me to work on in order to help with that good thing. And so you've got to learn and understand there's some things you've got to say no to protect your time, to protect your peace, to your mind, your boundaries while you are working through goals with God, while you're becoming aware. And so before starting something, take a look at Luke 14 when Jesus talks about building a tower and counting the cost. You when we start to plan a project with the Lord or we start to plan goals with the Lord, there's things we have to say no to, and we have to learn that that is part of stewardship with God. And then I think before we get into this journal, the next thing is you got to understand that eternal goals take priority over earthly goals, okay? Always. And so always prioritize those eternal goals and make everything in your life fit around those eternal goals. Now, that I'm not saying let your health go, let your bank account go, because all of those things contribute to the eternal goals. They truly do. Because if you are adjusting your finances to giving and tithing to the kingdom, if you are taking care of your health, you are here being healthy so that you can advance the kingdom. If you are working a job right now that God has given you, if you're taking care of your children, if you're taking care of your home, those are goals that you need to work on, but you need to know that you have to view them from an eternal perspective. I'm taking care of this so that I can do what God calls me to do. I'm laying down those boundaries. I'm saying no so that I can do what God calls me to do. And then I'm going to tell you something that so many of you are still, you're still kind of procrastinating on. Write it down, okay? Write it down. Get over. Listen, this is not, these little journals are not our childhood diaries, okay? Nobody has to ever read them but you and the Lord. If you want to make them where your children can read them when you're gone, that's fine. That's a goal of mine is that my children will have my journals and my notes to read when I'm gone. But for now, they're just between me and the Lord. And if I want to throw them away when I'm done with them, or I want to do whatever I want to do, it's between me and the Lord. This is not like somebody is coming in and gonna look at your personal thoughts, right? And so writing it down becomes, I believe that writing and journaling is a gift from God. The whole Bible is His written word preserved for us, right? Those were written words. You're seeing journals. When you read the Psalms, you're seeing personal journals of men and women that penned words, right, from God, from that divine that divine inspiration. And so get over that. Whatever you have to do, pray about it, but just get over the fact that you need to write things down. When you write things down, it gets it out of your body and it helps you to organize it, it helps you to plan, helps you to see things, and it's so good for your soul. I can't tell you that. So I hope that you're ready for this month. I want you to just now to, set it. The most important tip I can tell you from going deeper with the Lord in these journals is to look at your calendar. And this is part of purpose-driven planning. I am purposely planning to have a goal setting session with the Lord every month. I am purposely planning to, and for me, that happens before the 5th of every month. That's just by the 5th, I want to make sure that I have written down some goals for the month. I have talked to the Lord about it. I have looked at the areas of my life that I need to ask wisdom for, and I have that ready to go and printed somewhere where I can see it by the 5th of every month. So for some of you, you may need to do that, on the 30th so that you have it ready to go for day one. Whatever works for you, but you need to look at your calendar and say, okay, when can I do this with the Lord? It's on a Saturday or Sunday evening. And then when can I do my work in my SBA? When can I do this journaling? So you have the option of doing the 30 days every day. And so what does that look like? Does it become part of your quiet time? And you take that sentence and that Bible verse and you read it and you write something out with the Lord. And then when am I going to do my weekly journaling? And then if you are listening to these teachings, I need, at least a good 30 minutes, an hour to process and get through these teachings. And if I'm going to join a live group, what does that look like for me so that I can process and look for it? That is planning your spiritual growth. That's planning out your month. And so some of you do that by replays. Some of you do that, you fit it in as you're working. Some of you do it on your lunch breaks. Some of you do it early in the morning, but what is that time? And put it on your calendar because that is an intentional step, okay? And so now let's look at becoming aware. Let's really dive in. So step one is just sitting through this. And you guys, you can stop this video and do the question and then start it again. And in fact, I actually recommend that. Like stop the video, journal with the Lord, and then restart it right as you're working through it. Or you can watch the video through and then come back and journal later, whichever works for you. The thing is, there's no expectations here, okay? We are just working through this the best we can, perfectly imperfect. And I promise you, if this is your first time getting into this, from experience and other people who have done the journaling with me, they will tell you it's so hard in the beginning because you're changing your routine, you're changing your thoughts, you're working on some inner healing, and your body and your mind is going to kick back on that, right? It's going to be like, nope, can't do this, not going to do it, going to procrastinate it, all the things. It's totally normal, okay? It's normal. It's part of the process. And so we have some women who are doing this for, their second and third time, and they see so much growth. So they may not have written down anything the first time they did it. And then the second time they do it, they're like, whew, I see how much I've grown from year one to year two. And so I see, and then you see things different every time you go through it. So just keep going and be patient with yourself and work at your pace with the Lord. So the first step in doing this is really recognizing your current situation and your need for goals. And I think I just gave you a lot of teaching on, and thoughts to think on why we need goals. And really reflecting and being aware of where you are right now. And everybody's different. Some people in here, they've never really been a goal setter, or they did set goals earlier in life and they don't anymore. And then a lot of you come and you really feel overwhelmed. Be honest with where you're at, okay? There's no wrong in this. There's no shame in this, no condemnation. We just acknowledging and we're letting out where we are. And so the question here is, have you been setting goals? And if not, why do you think you're not? Why do you think you're not? And how do you feel about where you are with life right now? How do you feel about your spiritual growth? How do you feel about your walk with the Lord? How do you feel about your study of His Word? How do you feel about your relationships in your life, your health, your healing? How do you feel about the things that He's asked you to do? And then step two is taking a minute and really listening to what God is saying, okay? So if you need to stop the video right here and spend 10 minutes or an hour and come back to this later, then do it. Do it however the Lord leads you. Go to the park and sit for a little while with a journal. God is always speaking to you. I truly believe that. Truly believe God is speaking through nature. He is speaking through godly people. I know He's speaking through His Word. He's speaking through songs. He's speaking through circumstances. But we rarely slow down enough to really grab a hold of it and listen. And so we want to understand, God, what is that area in our life that is like sticking out, maybe like a sore thumb, but we keep ignoring, right? Where are you inviting me to grow or serve? And there's maybe a need that he's calling you to, or in your community, or in your home, or in your own life, or a responsibility that he's given you, an area that maybe just needs a little bit more attention right now. Maybe it's your marriage, maybe it's your relationships with your kids or your parents or a friend. And so just asking him, right? Just stopping and saying, what do you want me to focus on in this season? Where do you want me to step forward in faith? And so what is he speaking to you about your current season? What is he calling you to pay attention to? And how might that then begin? What we want to do is take this from, okay, this is the thought process, to how he wants us to set a goal in that area. Okay? So if you need to stop, come back. Step three is about identifying those areas that he has called us to steward well. Stewardship, we often just think stewardship is about money. It's not. It is. We do need to take care of the money that God has given us. And we have a whole month on stewardship in She Blooms Academy. But stewardship is not just about managing our money. It's about faithfully taking care of everything that God has given you, okay? And so what responsibilities do you feel called to steward better? And then, a lot of these questions may seem redundant, but it just takes you a little step further. And it just helps you to understand it and to get it all out with the Lord. So just think about that. Now, you may be thinking, what do you mean, what areas? All of your areas of life. Just think about everything that God has given you in your life. And then think about how you are taking care of that, and what you're really focusing on. And so many women I see, they really struggle with self-care because we feel like self-care is selfish, because we're busy taking care of everybody else and trying to put out their needs. Can I tell you right now that sometimes when you are taking care of everybody else, you can begin to become God to them, right? Like, you don't want to be God to the people in your life. We're called to help people, but we're not called to fix everything in their life. Only God can fix the things that they need to be fixed, that need to be fixed in their life. And so we have to take a step back and we have to say, okay, am I taking care of me? Because I can't take care of other people well if I'm not taking care of me. If I'm not taking care of my soul and I'm not getting the love that God has called me or giving to me, if I'm not fully receiving that, if I'm not stewarding my healing and the things that He's given me, then I need to take a step back and maybe take my hands off of some problems that other people have. And I'm going to tell you, when you do that and you start to focus on you and you start to focus on prioritizing, stewarding yourself well and the things God's given you, most of the problems you had your hands in with other people begin to fix themselves. And because God is finally being let into that situation. And so I don't know who needed that today, but we have to understand that we have to look at what God's given us and steward it well. And when we do that, He begins to work in all other areas of our life. Matthew 6:33, right? Seek ye first the kingdom. And so self-care for me has always been about soul care and always been about my kingdom mission and my kingdom purpose and being able to fulfill that, those things that God is calling me to do. And so what areas is God calling you to steward? For me, I'm going to tell you, my health has been one over the past years that He and I have been working on. And stewarding that well, because I can't teach. I can't fully do what He's called me to do. I can't take care of the people that He's entrusted me to take care of and help the people unless my health is running at optimum, right? And so I have to begin to understand there's certain things that I can't eat and I can't, I don't need to go very many days without moving my body and getting outside and getting fresh air. I also have to be very careful in overcommitting or over, stimulation for myself. And so I have to work on the Lord with that. And that's one area that He is calling me to steward more faithfully. And so He has big reasons for that and eternal purposes for that. It's totally attached to what He's doing in my life. So, step 4 is taking action, okay? Awareness is key, but we want to take action this month. We want to take it with prayer, pray, ask the Lord, and we want to start small and we want to ask God to adjust our current direction and be willing for Him to adjust it. And so, really beginning to say, what is that small step I can take today to begin setting goals that align with what God is calling me to do? And so I'm going to give you many examples. I'm going to actually work this out with you as we go throughout this month, but this week is just about being aware, okay? And then there's your memory verse. If you want to do a memory verse this month, that would be a good one to start with. And then we get into week 1 and we just become a little bit more aware. We just become a little bit more of just what God is doing with us. And so I really want you to take time to sit with this for a minute, okay? A God goal is different from just any goal that we set. It's not about personal success or meeting the world's expectation. It's about truly aligning our desires. And God desires to give us the desires of our heart. And so it's about aligning those desires with God's purpose and trusting Him to guide us. And really looking at what we need to align with that. And sometimes it's about those godly goals aligning with what we're already doing in this season. And sometimes it is about something new that we need to step in. And so just take a minute and as you go into this, and where is it that you're needing to take action on? I talk about Noah here and then Esther, oh my gosh, and the Apostle Paul. And so take time to read through this and really let it sink in and then ask yourself again, what is that area? What is that area? And I would love for you to hop into She Bloom Sisters group and tell me what God reveals to you. Tell me what He's revealing to you. We want to know because we want to cheer you on, okay? And so, how are all the goals that you set in all areas of life related to what God is calling you to do? I just gave you an example with my health. I can give you another example with my finances, with my marriage, with, serving in my church or my relationship with my kids or my relationship with other people. All of the things that God is asking me to do relate to what He's calling me to do. I need that support. I need to be healthy. I need to adjust my finances so that when He says, Tabitha, I need you to give to this person or I need you to go here, then I'm able to do that, right? Because I'm stewarding my time, I'm stewarding my finances, I'm stewarding my health, I'm stewarding my marriage, I'm stewarding all the things that He's given me very well so that then I can go and step into what He calls me to do when He calls me to do it because I've taken care of what it is that He's asked me to take care of. I hope you're beginning to see that. And so the other journaling questions are, what are the responsibilities of my life that I need to steward better? In what ways can I align those goals with God's will and trust Him for guidance and strength? That's a huge one, okay? So how can I align my goals? How can I align? So back up to the responsibilities. Just list out those responsibilities that you have, all the responsibilities that you have right now, right? And then begin to circle the ones that you need to kind of work on with the Lord, that you're still having trouble with, that you're still, burdened by, or you still just, you feel like, what, like I keep putting this off and I really need to work. That's what God is highlighting to you. Highlight it with a highlighter. And then how can I align it with His will? Well, understanding why that it's His will for you in this season of life and trusting that He's going to give you the guidance and strength that you need. Some of you this month, If you've been working through the She Blooms Academy journals, there are dreams and visions that God has been putting on your heart. There's things that He's been placing in your heart to do. And you're going to be able to see that start to come to pass this month. And you're actually going to start planning out those things. And some of you just through this journal, you're gonna realize there's big dreams that He's putting on your heart. And I hope that this month will teach you to start planning the action behind those. I hope that it'll start breaking down that goal and looking at it and saying, okay, how can I really start taking steps forward? And how can I do that? Well, the number one way is to ask Him for strength and guidance. Okay. And then so we're going to dive in just a little bit this week, okay, on what's the fear, what's the hesitation I have about pursuing those God-inspired goals, and how can I surrender them to Him? And so the simplest thing I can teach you here is, okay, why am I not doing the things that I'm doing? Why am I not getting out and taking the walk? I've heard some women tell me, like, I'm not physically able to, right? You feel like you're not physically able to get out and even move your body. Um, and so there's a fear around that. There's a fear of falling. There's a fear of getting hurt. There's a fear of, I'm so out of shape, right? Literally, it starts with just one little walk around your house, 5 minutes, right? 5 minutes a day, if that's all you can do. And then some of you, you're able to do more, but your mind is telling you that you can't, okay? And then you're also given into the lie that I don't have time. I don't have time to get out and steward my body. I don't have time to work on health goals. And guess what? Then you figure out you get sick, and then you figure out, oh, well, if I'd have taken care of this, right, then maybe I would not then God, then you're like, oh, I see, I have time, right? And so we use time as an excuse a lot. We say we don't have time to do these things. And I'm telling you right now, and in your Bible study too, I hear a lot of women say, well, I don't have time for quiet time. I don't have time for Bible study. Whew, I'm going to say be very careful, okay? Be very careful with that. Because God will bend time with you. He will bend time for you when you start to align things in your day. And some of you, that may be the goal that God's calling you this month, is for you to get into a weekly routine with Him, a daily routine with Him, in which the appointment that you're keeping with Him is the most important. I say this often. If you had a doctor's appointment, unless something just come up that you could not help it, you would keep that doctor's appointment. The most important appointments usually get kept, right? Well, your appointment with the Lord every day, it may not be a lot of time, but it's the most important time that you'll ever spend. Because you're getting the nourishment, you're getting the strategies, you're getting the wisdom, you're getting the love that you need to go and do whatever else God is calling you to do. And so we often have a lot of fear and we have a lot of hesitation. And one of the number one fears is that I just don't have enough time to get everything that I need to get done. Well, then you need to look back at what we were talking about a while ago, and you need to say, okay, what do I need to say no to? What do I need to say no to in order to free up more time in my life and prioritize God? And then some of you have real fears about stepping out and stepping into that dream. I don't have the resources. I don't know enough about the Bible. I hear a lot of women say that. Listen, it's not about that. It's about you studying diligently and getting in there with Him and letting Him prepare you and letting the Holy Spirit teach you and letting the Holy Spirit fill you with what you need. And so, there's a lot of fears about I'm not enough, and we'll address more of these in week 2. But just for now, just begin to think about, why am I not pursuing this? Why am I not doing it? Some of you, it may seriously be, and I'm not, no condemnation. It just may be that you've gotten lazy, and maybe God is bringing that to your awareness right now, that we've just gotten lazy with some things, and we've just gotten complacent. And I'm going to tell you, like, we need to get out of the complacency, and we need to get out of that. And there's things I get lazy on with the Lord, and the Lord had to correct me. And so, what is it? Am I scared that, I'll fail? Am I scared what people will think? What is it that's going on in your heart really and what God is calling you to do? And so I hope you have some space there in the journal to take some notes. And then in week 2, we'll dive into really talking about processing those root issues, what's really going on in your heart. Use the She Bloom Sisters groups, to really connect with your other sisters as they're going through this journal and really, talk about what you're going through and what God is calling you to do. It's going to inspire other people as you're journaling this out and you're sharing with them. It's a safe space for you to do that with. And so I hope this week you just begin to really plan for your time in She Blooms, plan for your time to study, set yourself up with, maybe that's your goal for this month. And if you've been doing this and you already kind of have a plan, maybe it's other areas that you need to kind of sit with the Lord and be more intentional on, and what that looks like for your life and being more intentional to take steps. And so as you go through this, you'll go deeper and deeper with the Lord, and it'll come full circle, I promise. But just keep going, and just this week, just become aware. Where am I, Lord? And what do I sense that you're calling me to do? Nothing else. We don't want to deal too much with those issues just yet. We don't want to do too much planning just yet because right now we just sitting with the Lord. We're hearing from Him. We're asking Him to show us where He wants us to, what He wants us to work on. That's what we want to seek Him for. That's what we want to keep asking and knocking and at His door and saying, "What is it, Lord? Show me," over and over again until He reveals that to you. Amen. Oh my goodness. I love you so much. I pray that this month is blessed. I pray that He reveals so much to you. I pray that you just receive wisdom and understanding and revelation like you've never had before as you go through this month. And I pray that He puts incredible, amazing, exceedingly abundant above anything that you were thinking or asking. I pray that He puts those dreams and visions on your heart so that you can begin to set goals with Him and begin that purpose driven planning. And I'll see you next time. Bye.